And we are live. Give it a few minutes and let some people get in here. Hope everybody's having a good Father's Day, good Sunday. We have Gina with us. For those of y'all that are familiar with the convention, she's a familiar face. She's an original Mad Monster and a fellow horror nerd like myself. Thanks for coming in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Doing well. Glad to be on. I've watched many of these so far and participated in the chat.
Yeah, these are definitely fun. Be sure you guys tuning in. Hey, Liz, how's everything going? She says, "What's up, Gina?"
Hello.
Everybody, share it up. Share it up. We're going to talk about some horror today. And if you guys, how many? I'm interested to know how many people have Hulu that's on here. Comment if you have it, and then also let us know. Are you satisfied with the horror movies that are on Hulu? Because that's one of the things we're going to break down to you is what are the best horror movies to watch right now on Hulu. Now, Gina, are you like me? I got Amazon Prime, Hulu, uh, Tubi, which Tubi's free, so Disney Plus. I mean, I got 99,000 streaming services. How about you?
Same. I have the sub channels on through Amazon, Showtime, HBO. Haven't signed up for HBO Max yet. Prime, Netflix, Hulu, all the basics basically. But I've noticed it's kind of frustrating because it seems like they're getting a licensing for similar things. I don't know if you've noticed this. Like I'll go on Netflix, I'm like, this is the same thing that's on Hulu right now, except for like maybe a few titles that they might have exclusive rights to. So it always feels like you're getting cheated. Like I'm paying for a subscription, but both platforms are showing the same films.
I agree. We have Alan says evening, y'all. Evening, Alan. We got Scott, Mad Monster. What's going on, Scott? Rick says, hi, guys. Hi, Rick. Patty says she has Hulu. Thana says, hello, everyone. Hello, Thana. Natalie says, I have Hulu and no, absolutely not satisfied. That's what we're going to be talking about today, Natalie. Because I got a feeling you're not the only one that's not satisfied. Saul says he has Hulu. Scott says I do, but I haven't watched it in forever. Tyler says me too. I've been watching horror movies on Hulu. Natalie says very true.
Hi, Karina.
She says, hi, Gina. And Tara says, what the F is this? This is us talking about some horror movies. Are you watching some horror movies, Tara? Hopefully if this showed up in your feed, Tara, you like watching horror movies.
Yeah.
So what, let's jump on this with Hulu. Are you satisfied, Gina, with what's on Hulu right now?
I have like my few topics I'm going to hit upon, like some obscure stuff like I mentioned before that may have been missed or slept on. It's nothing exclusive like Shudder, but I think if you get bored enough, you might find some gems that you're not aware of.
Yeah, same here for me is, when I kind of made a list of the ones that I kind of liked in no particular order.
Yeah, same here.
So I'm gonna throw one out, then you throw one out.
Okay.
The first one that I really liked is Rare Exports: A Christmas Tale. I know that is kind of a Christmas horror, weird foreign film, but I love that movie. I mean, that little kid is creepy. The whole Frozen thing's creepy. I mean, I don't want to give it away if you guys hadn't seen it, but
That's the fun part talking about these, not giving away the movie.
That's probably one of the few ones that people might not have seen, but I don't know. Have you guys watched your exports?
Yeah, chime in if you have suggestions too. I might not have seen it, or we haven't caught it as well. I'm seeing some people put some things down.
Yeah, Mary says Tubi is better for horror. I agree. Tubi has a little more of a selection than I see it on Amazon Prime. K. Joseph says, "What's up, gang? I'm not satisfied with Hulu and Netflix." Natalie says, "I need Shudder." Well, get it.
They did have a special going on during the quarantine. I think the code was shut in, that they were giving away free trials.
I just watched Good Boy on Hulu. Little Monsters is a good movie. So, what's yours that's on the list, Gina?
I was going to go into this. It seems like Hulu has this exclusive deal with Blumhouse, and they were doing the Into the Dark series, where they were releasing a movie each month themed to whatever holiday landed in that month. And one of them that I found kind of entertaining, and it kind of reminded me a little of like a lesson of morality, was called "I'm Just Fucking with You," and it's kind of like a dark comedy, but a lot of tension. And it was just basically this guy who was a internet troll. He liked to pick on people through his social medias, and he kind of got his karma, basically. So I would definitely check it out if you haven't watched it. Again, it's a dark comedy. There's a lot of tense, comical scenarios, and it's one of those you kind of root for the bad guy at parts.
Yeah, I looked through that list of the little Blumhouse things. So I guess the story behind that is Hulu realizes it's weak on horror, so they networked with Blumhouse to try to get some good content. And it's like, I wanted those movies to be really good. Like, I wanted them to be as good as like the 8 Films to Die For. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
But they missed the mark. I mean, my favorite one from the Blumhouse ones was Pilgrim.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty entertaining. The rest of them I was kind of.
Some of them were sci-fi-ish. Like if you watched, I'm gonna see like All That We Destroy. That was the one where the mother was a genetic scientist and was recreating clones to satiate her son's homicidal tendencies. So that one was kind of like sci-fi-ish to me, a sci-fi thriller, if you will.
Yeah, the next one that's on my list is very significant historically in horror, is Baskin. Baskin is a Turkish horror movie, which is very significant because Turkey has a strict Islamic regime that censors a lot of artists' capability to film different things in the country of Turkey. So this is the first horror movie ever in Turkey, and it was only filmed like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh.
And it kind of has that Twilight Zone feel. It kind of has that, blood and gore. I just definitely could not have expected that the Turkish government would have signed off on some of this stuff. I think they probably did break some laws when they filmed it. But it was amazing. I mean, have you seen Baskin?
I haven't, so I definitely have to check it out. That was the one I think category that I feel like I missed, was the foreign category. So
I usually don't like them because a lot of times horror doesn't transfer over well in subtitles for me.
Yeah. So that's always a gamble. I always have to be in the mood, whether I'm going to be fully paying attention to the movie to read subtitles, or really, I don't know, I guess just be in the mood for whatever dialogue they're going to be talking about. Kind of like British TV.
Yep.
Sometimes it's hard to follow.
Natalie says, "Oh my God, that was creepy. All That We Destroy."
Yeah, the movie that I was just talking about with the genetic scientist's mother recreating the clones. It was creepy. You kind of, it was disturbing for what it was. Not a serious feature film, but a quickly made feature film, I guess you could say.
What's the next one on your list, Gina?
The other one I was going to bring up from the Blumhouse Into the Dark series was The Body. I found that one entertaining, where the trained killer was trying to dispose of a body on Halloween, and everybody thought it was a prop, so they were getting in his way. So it's like meddling kids getting in the way of this professional trained killer doing his job. Of all days on Halloween.
That'd be the perfect time to drag a body around.
Yeah, because everybody thought it was a prop. They're like, cool prop, man. And it was just dragging it down the street.
I had forgot about that one.
Mm-hmm.
They do have the Clove Hitch Killer on there.
I saw that pop up. I haven't watched it yet. Did you watch it?
I watched it. That's definitely worth the watch. It's I love that creepy serial killer vibe where you're trying to figure out, is this guy really a serial killer? Is it not? And it's a significant Father's Day movie because it's about a son wondering if his father is the Clove Hitch Killer.
Oh.
You know, and that's got to be a weird situation to think that, you know, you live with somebody in their household and they could be an infamous serial killer. You know?
Yeah. That just reminded me of another film I couldn't remember because I've watched so many, they meld together. I'll have to look it up later to give you the title. What's next on your list?
Mark says, I like Baskin.
Oh, I guess some people have watched it.
It was great. The other one was Trespassers. With
well, you said all the ones I haven't watched.
Yeah. And I really like that, you know, one of those, you know, to me, horror is all about, when you're doing, especially indie horror, it's all about isolating the situation to one location. And the reason they do that is because you can control your production budget. And a lot of times there's not huge budgets in these movies. And when they're making these movies, they have to focus on what type of talent they get, their special effects makeup artists, and then, you know, paying for post-production, which would include color correction, rendering, all this type of stuff. And, you know, Trespassers really gave a good bang for their buck. They had Farrusa Balk in it, which is amazing. I love her from The Craft.
Yeah.
So I really like that one.
What you touched upon those points is like I really do find that I appreciate low quality horror movies. That they kind of goes hand in hand. I love when they rely more on practical effects than special effects or graphic influence effects. I guess that's the old school horror nerd in me. So I kind of appreciate it because I grew up on those kind of TV series like The Hitchhiker, Tales from the Dark Side, Tales from the Crypt. And I loved how campy and just like, I guess, low production they were.
Yeah. Scott says Baskin was nuts. I agree. Jenny says, hi, guys. Hi, Jenny. David says, have you seen Mr. Hush? I have not seen Mr. Hush.
I have not.
Now, one of the ones that was on there that I really thought was miscategorized was Wrinkles the Clown. It's in the documentary section, but it's more of a found footage film. Mm-hmm. It's not bad. I'm kind of tough on clowns. If they don't do it right, they don't do it right. And I just think the whole Wrinkles the Clown was a internet gimmick down there in Florida.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I remember when that was in its like peak where everybody was making the posts, and it was highly entertaining. I personally didn't have any encounters. I don't think there was any sightings near my house, being that I'm from Florida, but it was definitely a unique thing. And people are actually making memes out of it, like bring back the clowns instead of the coronavirus. Like we'd rather deal with the clowns.
Yeah. Now, did you ever watch the new Child's Play? Because that's on Hulu.
I just realized that was the new one, which kind of surprised me for a Hulu. So I haven't watched it yet. I will definitely have to check it out. And it's the same with the Pet Cemetery, the 2019 Pet Cemetery. I never got around to watching that as well because I just love the original so much that I didn't want to spoil it with the remake.
I think the remake with Pet Cemetery, was a bust. I saw that on there, and it's like, how do you mess up a Stephen King novel? Watch the new Pet Cemetery. I mean, it just didn't taste right. The coloring looked beautiful. I try to find something positive because, like, I don't sit down and watch a horror movie and say, "Hey, I'm gonna hate this thing." I sit down and I'm like, I want to enjoy it because if I thought it sucked, I wouldn't watch it. And then I put it in and I'm like, the cinematography is beautiful, the color was right. I love the way they did this, and then it's like, really? That's what y'all did with Pet Cemetery?
That's what my fear was. Just something in it. I just sensed it wasn't going to be as good as the original, and I couldn't tell if that was just like me being biased. But
And the same thing with Child's Play. I mean, it's in the synopsis, it gives it away, which we know that close your ears if I spoil it for you, Gina. That the new Child's Play is AI. And Chucky is not artificial intelligence. Come on, people. Chucky's a serial killer that did some hoobada, boobada, hoobada, and went into the body of a doll. And the doll's trying to go into the body of some people. I mean, it's that simple. When you say that Chucky's just a computer, then you got like a horror version of Small Soldiers or something. I don't know.
I agree. I think the whole appeal to the original was the possession, that it was an actual soul inside of the doll that made him so evil. And I feel like we already have plenty of the AI perspectives, so why update it?
That movie could have been a good horror movie. They just didn't need to call it Child's Play.
I agree. I agree.
You know, um, we got Maggie says hi, Gina.
Oh, I was going to bring up. I don't know if you watched this. I know that in one of these previous ones, I recommended you watch Black Mirror. I don't know if you checked that out yet. It's not on Hulu. It's on Netflix. But one night I was perusing through and I discovered a show called Dimension 404, which is kind of similar to like a Twilight Zone and a Black Mirror. And it didn't make it. I don't know what it was premiered on, what channel, if it was on TV channel. Because it's an older, I think I wrote down the date here, 2017, and one of the episodes had Patton Oswalt in it. It was pretty entertaining for what it was. Same thing that makes you question your ethics and your morality. Like there's a moral in each one of them, and just little short episodes with modern problems like social media or dating sites. The one with Patton Oswalt he was an old school guy that was fighting future technology, and they have a 4D movie experience, and he just refused to partake in it. And he was right to follow his gut instinct because it was just an elaborate ruse. There was like a twist at the end. So
Is Black Mirror the one where it's got the kid, the young actor from Get Out, where they're riding bicycles?
I'm not sure.
They have to power the thing. I don't know. They got some, when you want to talk about TV shows, the one that struck me on Hulu was Castle Rock season 2.
Yes, I was going to bring that up as well. Lizzie Kaplan did an amazing job portraying Annie Wilkes. I was hesitant to continue pushing through season 2 because it had been so long since I watched Salem's Lot, and when it started, I was like, okay, this is going to touch upon Salem's Lot. So I had to go back and rewatch, which is smart on the TV series part to revive people's interest in the old movies, these obscure Stephen King movies that just kind of fell by the wayside over time. So it made me want to rewatch Misery, Shawshank Redemption. Like I loved all the little Easter eggs in it because you had to bone up on your Stephen King knowledge because it's the universe. So they're mentioning a lot of things that you don't realize in that show, and so many people haven't watched it, and I was surprised because I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, that was a prequel that I didn't even know we needed, but we definitely needed because I love that story.
Yeah,
That was probably one of the best Stephen King inspired properties that I've seen made in a while because they did that in the tall grass on Netflix, and I just couldn't get into that. It was
everybody told me to watch it, and I just didn't. I'm like, I just didn't get it.
just
But
just walk around in a field of grass.
yeah, I didn't. I was like, I don't understand. It's like those like Midsummer, Hereditary, The Witch movies. Like they're either hit or miss for
Yeah,
me. They might be a little too kitschy or art driven.
yeah.
Uh, I saw them in theater too, so the environment is very important when you go to a theater. If everybody's laughing, it kind of ruins the whole aesthetic. So you're just looking around, is this a comedy or was this meant to be scary? I'm not sure. So that was what I felt with in the tall grass. Like, I'm not sure.
Liz said, "Watch the Kevin Bacon movie,
You should have left.
and you should have left mixed feelings." Have you watched that? It just came out this week. Boomhouse put it out.
I haven't watched it yet because it was between that one or The Lodge, and I opted to watch The Lodge.
Now, how was The Lodge?
The Lodge was like it's a thriller. It's a slow burn thriller. I like the setup, but it was kind of different. The ending kind of left you like, but basically it's just based on this girl who survived a mass cult suicide. And this guy starts dating her, and he decides it's smart to leave his 2 kids alone in a lodge in the middle of nowhere in the dead of winter while he went to work. I'm going to leave you with this girl who survived a mass cult suicide who's not right in the head.
Wow.
So it's like one of those scenarios. So,
Dan says, "Hi, Gina."
hi, Dan.
Gina says, "I'm looking forward to checking that one out." Barry says, "Hello, guys. I also enjoy Black Mirror." Joseph says, "I need to check Castle Rock." Yeah, check it. It's
Yeah,
probably
definitely.
one of the ones I liked.
I hope I'm not sure. I didn't follow up if they're going to continue into season 3. I hope they do because I feel like there's a lot of potential there.
Now, what do you think of The Cabin in the Woods? That's on Hulu right now. Which
I actually just rewatched it because I saw that it was on Hulu. And I don't know if you watched it on Hulu, but the sound was off on mine. It was really low. And then I watched something directly after it, and it went back to normal sound. But I watched Cabin in the Woods in theater, and I remember because I didn't watch any trailers. I knew it was a horror, and I watch every horror movie that I can in the theater. And in the beginning, when you're setting everything up, I was very confused. But when they made that stop, I'm like, really? This has been done. But when you continue watching, you see why you feel like you've watched this movie before because every scenario, every cliche scenario in a horror movie is in this movie. And then that's what made me love the movie in the end. I was like, that was actually really entertaining.
Yeah, now they do have Elvira, Mistress of the Dark on Hulu right now, which I was definitely. It's been a while since I checked out some Elvira, but she's timeless. I enjoy checking out her comedy.
Yeah, I loved it. It reminded me of being a kid, listening to her records, and then trying to play them backwards, thinking there would be a secret message. But also, I mean, growing up in the 80s, I don't know if you remember, I used to watch USA Up All Night. So that same like vein of horror. So I always love watching her stuff. She's just great. Still to this day. Still just as funny as she was back in the 80s.
Yeah, she must be a vampire or something because she doesn't age a bit.
I tell her that every time I see her. And I just recently commented on her post about the face mask. Like, I'd love to see your skincare routine. What's your secret? If it's the blood of children or she sold her soul. I think inquiring minds are anxious to know what her secret is.
Jawan says, "Every night before I sleep, I watch horror movies." I do too, Jawan. That or $1 Million Listing, because I know it ain't horror, but I've been on that $1 Million List in LA, seeing all them big fancy houses out there in Los Angeles, and they just throwing out 10, 20, $50 million on a house. I'm like, oh my Lord. They say 10,000 square foot. I say, how much is the power bill? I mean, you got to imagine.
Yeah. Just the maintenance alone, the upkeep of that house.
But I enjoy horror before bed. The other thing that was on here that isn't a horror movie, but has got the best gore that I've ever seen lately in a non-horror film, better than some gore in horror film, is Lords of Chaos. That was about the Norwegian death metal scene with Rory Corkin.
Yeah, which I guess you can kind of throw it in there. I mean, it's inspired, or life imitates art and art imitates life. Black metal to me kind of goes hand in hand with horror. I feel like there's a lot of inspiration off of each other.
Yeah, that was creepy. I mean, because when I was watching it, I was like, holy moly, where'd they come up with this at? Because I didn't know it was a true story or based on a true story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what kind of made it more horrific for me, is knowing that the kid that did all that stuff really did all that stuff, and the band did do all those things. I'm just like, oh my goodness.
To me, that stuff hits me harder than any kind of out of the box horror movie. That's why I always loved Texas Chainsaw Massacre or The Hills Have Eyes, even though it could have been outlandish. It's like there's a slight possibility that is real. Like incest is a real thing. So those always fascinated and scared me more than the outlandish, outright slasher films, because if it can happen in real life, that just hits home.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things like that I found really terrifying about Michael Myers. When you look at the original Halloween, is just that a normal everyday kid could just snap, stab up his sister, not say nothing, to break out of the insane asylum, and it's just coming at you. Then they get just crazy with it. It seems like they always take it too far, but when they make it very believable, it's just disturbing.
When they started putting super strength and immortality, and then the curse of Michael Myers, it started getting really out there. It took away the realistic feeling, and it made it more fantasy.
Yeah, and I think they do that to them all, and it kind of ruins the life of the character. They get more involved in coming out with the net, like, how do we kill him and make everybody think this is the last one, and then bring him back? Let's just bring him back. It's like they don't even try to trick the viewers,
Yeah, they unfortunately did that with Friday the 13th series as well. Let's send him to space.
Yeah.
I think that was a little too far.
I could see Elon Musk sending Jason to space. A rich billionaire be like, "Oh, we're gonna send Jason to space."
He would do that. But the whole making the mask out of like melding it together out of his machete, like it was just they were definitely trying to breathe new life into the franchise, I guess, but lost the roots, I guess, lost their way. Like, it's supposed to be about a guy hanging out where he died, taking out his revenge on teenagers.
That's why when we talk about, like, I think I totally agree with you about just, if the threat seems real in a horror movie, the movie's spooky.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the Poughkeepsie tapes that's on Amazon, I think we pretty much wrapped up a lot of the ones that are on Hulu.
Yeah.
But, and the bottom line about what's the best thing to watch on Hulu, if you're not currently subscribing to Hulu, I wouldn't even think twice about subscribing, because they're just not fulfilling the void unless you want to watch Castle Rock and Rick and Morty. I pretty much got Hulu for Rick and Morty and Castle Rock. But when you go in and you look at like something very realistic, the Poughkeepsie tapes, that's an amazing found footage film that teeters that borderline of, am I watching a home movie from a serial killer, or is this thing fake? And that was one that I think it took them 10 years for MGM to figure out how to release it, and they finally released it.
Not surprising, but that usually means it's going to be a good movie. That's how I feel. If it takes them forever to figure out how to rate it or get it to where it can rate, then they're onto something.
Yep. We got the nerd report in here. If you guys aren't following the nerd report, them guys are nerdy over there. Be sure to follow. He says Halloween 2018 was bad. What's your thoughts on that, Gina?
I'm not. I guess that odd opinion that I didn't mind it. I didn't look at it like it was going to compare to John Carpenter's Halloween. I looked at it as just a different point of view of how Michael Myers came to be the soulless killer that he is. And I feel like they went, in a different direction and kind of gave you something different to watch.
Yeah, I'm not too. I'm gonna watch, and that's probably why they keep making them. I'm gonna watch Halloween Kills when that comes out, and then I'll probably watch the last one that Blumhouse completes. But I'm just not very excited for them. If the only place to watch them is the theaters, I'm not going.
I watched it in a theater, and I was like, yeah, it was a Halloween movie. It was a horror movie in all essence. Same formula. You had the funny guy. You had the antagonist, the protagonist. Some interesting kills, like the pen. The pen kill. But all in all, it was just, I watched it for entertainment. I went in with no expectations.
Now, what's your favorite horror movie of all time, Gina?
That's a hard question because every time someone asks me that, it's like, I feel like it revolves and changes with my mood or where I'm at in like my life. I love campy horror movies, so I always say the cheesy movies like House movies or Demonic Toys, Night of the Leapers. Like, I grew up watching all of anything. I used to go to VHS stores with my grandfather, and we would try to pick out the scariest movie to scare the other one more. And so you step up like, this one looks crazy. And I was like 5, 6 years old. I cut my teeth on horror. My mom watched horror since I was like 2 or 3. So I had already watched every Nightmare, every Halloween, every Friday the 13th that came out as they were coming out, on top of the TV series Tales from the Crypt. I grew up on that. Tales from the Dark Side, still the scariest intro music to me. Very, very bone chilling. So I will always stay true to the kitschy 80s campy horror movies. Into the
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Even to the 90s, like House or Dolly, or any of those movies are just outlandish, but I love it for its entertainment value. That stuff not really scary to me. Is just fun to watch.
Now, Amanda says, I just watched The Conjuring on Hulu or maybe Netflix. I think it's on Netflix. The Conjuring's a great horror film. I thought the new Halloween was a flop.
Conjuring is actually available to watch through Hulu via HBO. I guess during the quarantine, HBO was allowing access to the movies, and I rewatched all of that universe basically. And then I started noticing little timeline discrepancies after I watched The Conjuring, and then I watched Annabelle Comes Home. It was like there's a weird gap in the timeline. It's almost like they forgot how many years had passed because the doll was already home in The Conjuring.
Yeah, it's weird how they pieced that together. It was like at the beginning and end of each one, they tried to have a story that spawned its own franchise. And in that universe, the thing that upset me the most, that had the best potential, was The Nun. That movie was in my opinion, a major letdown. I kind of have this love-hate relationship with Blumhouse. I love them because they make horror movies. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I hate them when they don't make the horror movies that I want them to make, It
goes back to where we were talking. Is like, how are they producing so much content without sacrificing quality? When I started thinking about these, they're producing a film a month on Hulu, plus whatever features that are being released in theater. How are they able to do all of that and still uphold quality? I can't, don't hold it against me. La Lorena, or
Yep.
I watched that one a couple of weeks ago. I could take it or leave it. It really wasn't that scary to me. Um, the character development, I didn't bond with any of the characters, so I could care less if they died. And even with the spirit, I really didn't have any attachment to any part of that movie, aside from the fact that it was supposed to be taking place in the 70s, and I do love horror movies that take place in the 70s. That was probably the only part of it that I appreciated.
Yeah, Blumhouse movies have been kind of nah lately. I mean, I did somewhat like the Kevin Bacon movie. You should have left. I somewhat like it, but it was like okay. And then the Hunt really didn't do. That was fairly good. Then the Invisible Man was like you didn't really make an Invisible Man movie. It didn't do right to the classic monsters.
I don't understand why Universal is having such a hard time trying to bring the Universal classic monsters into this day and age. I feel like they missed it with the Mummy series as well. It doesn't translate as a horror franchise to me. It just, it's almost like two different entities. I guess they're remaking the Wolfman now.
Yeah, and they'll probably find a way to mess that up. I mean, they don't. It's like it's like they forget the basics of horror, and what they go for is how many jump scenes we can fit into a movie, and then how many times can they make you think it's going to be a jump scene and then it's not. It's nothing that really disturbs people.
This is true. I think that that's where a lot of the new horror movies are kind of missing. The point of the imagination is always going to be far scarier than you shoving whatever you want me to see in my face. That's where the classics like Alfred Hitchcock are always still great, because when the camera pans away and it leaves you wondering, what was it? What did I miss? What happened? What does it look like? What did they do? Your imagination starts running away. And most of the time, you can come up with something far more horrific than what they show you on the screen. And I feel like they rely so heavily on jump scares, bumping up sound effects noises, like intensity of like bones cracking or stabbing sounds. And I could take it or leave it.
Amanda said she liked The Nun. Not amazing, but I thought it was a cool spinoff. I just, think it didn't live up to its full potential.
I agree, especially for a religious-based horror film. Like when you get into religious-based horror films, like The Exorcist, Poltergeist, The Omen, I always think that they hit like really dark notes. The Nun really didn't get there for me. It really just didn't leave me feeling the urge to watch it again or watch more of the same genres.
Yeah.
Like Exorcist, it makes me want to watch more religious horror movies.
And Mark says, hello, everyone. Just tuned in. Hello, Mark. Hope you're doing good. Scott says, I don't know why they need to remake Wolfman again. The last one was so good.
Which one?
Is he talking about? I wonder if he's talking about the one with Anthony Hopkins in it. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up with them, just like the Frankenstein series. Like every time you turn around, they're remaking the Frankenstein.
Hey guys, that's watching this, comment right now and let us know, what is your favorite horror movie right now that is out there streaming? Be it Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, whatever channel. What's your favorite horror movie that's streaming? Scott says yes. He's talking about the one with Anthony Hopkins. Mark says, Abdul says hello. Hello, Abdul. Welcome. Mark says, Omen's such a classic. It is. That scene where she's like, it's all for you, Damien. That's what I'm talking about, at creating shocking content that is not necessarily bloody, but is shocking and entertaining. Joseph says the Kung Fu fighting priest from Brain Dead would be better movie than The Nun. True. Anthony says so many. I enjoyed House on Haunted Hill. House on Haunted Hill is definitely good.
Is that one on Netflix?
That one's on Netflix. It's a series. That and Mary Ann are pretty good on Netflix, worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mary Ann is dubbed, but they dubbed it fairly well, so it kind of worked. It seems like it's just a challenge when you sit down. It's like all these streaming services, but they can't keep up with the content production and, like you said, and keep the quality. I mean, if you look at the way a movie's produced, it probably takes about a year for the script to get made unless somebody just walks it in. Then you're talking about it probably takes a year for a movie to get made, to possibly 2 years. So the idea in the script is 2 years old, and what they thought was hot or scary 2 years ago might not be relevant to today. And that's the challenge of filmmaking, is essentially predicting what is going to be scary a year or two from the time you start pre-production.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, I love, Dee Snider and Strangeland. But when that was made, it was when nobody had body piercing. And now it's a very commonplace for body piercing, scarification, all kinds of models. So it doesn't hold the same impact. It's like, oh, you giving me 3 piercings? Kidnap me, Captain Howdy.
Yeah, that's pretty much the norm nowadays. I don't know if you're gonna really frighten anybody with that. But I guess that's just the time, like trends in horror movies. I don't know if you've noticed this. I started noticing trends in horror movies that are coming out. Would it be trend kills? Like I noticed, like I was watching movies like last year, and it seems to be the thing to snap fingers. Like they get the person and they start snapping their fingers. I'm like that. I just watched that in another movie. Is this they're just like fads in horror movies now, or soundtracks, or even how they're shot? It's almost like everybody's just biting off of everybody. Like, oh, that did well, so let's see if we can bite off similarities and kind of just keep the ball rolling. And then it makes you feel like you've seen the movie already.
Yeah. Sean says the first Insidious. That's a fair movie, lower budget. That did well.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony wanted to know, did you both enjoy Castle Rock? Yep. I think Castle Rock, especially season 2, is definitely worth it.
Yeah, if you're a Stephen King fan, definitely watch it. And bone up on your Stephen King before you do watch it.
Yeah. Liz says you talked about The Haunting of Hill House. Yep, The Haunting of Hill House. Caroline says, boyfriend and I watched Hell House LLC 1, 2, and 3 today on Shudder. They are so good. They're good, solid mockumentary found footage type movies. Terrifier is a very good movie. I like Art the Clown better than I like the actual movie itself.
Yeah, the character pretty much carried the movie for that. The supporting actors, take them or leave them. The story definitely not original, but Art the Clown definitely carries that movie alone.
Yeah. Richmod141 says, I personally don't like remakes. I think the classics should be left alone. They were great just the way they were. I believe it is time for new content. Stop trying to upgrade the classics. Well said. But the problem is with that is, would you go to an investor? You could say, will you make my original script, or will you make this intellectual property that's already proven to make millions and millions of dollars? They're going to choose the intellectual property, the rights to something, to remake it over original content, because Let's face it, if they make another Friday the 13th, everybody's going to go see it. If they make another Nightmare on Elm Street, everybody's going to go see it.
That's the unfortunate thing about the mentality of like a mass population is they stick to what they know, familiarity. If it's something new, I've noticed that they don't promote the movie itself. If it's a fresh idea, they try to lean on the actors that they get in the movie to sell the movie for them instead of letting the movie stand on its own. So big name actors, like that's one thing I do miss about 80s movies. Like horror movies always had B actors. You don't have A celebs doing horror movies, and they're trying to put A celebs in horror movies now just to carry how weak the movie is. So someone will go see it because Ryan Gosling's going to be in it.
And that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize you have to cast certain actors in movies if you want to get foreign sales. And foreign sales means they take your movie to the foreign market, and as a filmmaker / investor, you get paid for every territory in Europe that it sells in. So you could get paid a check for Germany, Britain, France, Italy, and people really need foreign sales to recoup. See, I was just talking to a friend of mine today, and I kind of wanted to throw this at you, Gina, just off topic a little bit. I feel like the movie industry now is where the music industry was when streaming first hit. I think it's filmmakers are really having to understand as the impact of being able to subscribe to 20 channels and have all that content at the tip of your finger, because a lot of people aren't buying the physical DVDs anymore. I mean, because that was a huge profit margin. You press up a DVD for $1, sell it for $14. The Walmart store or whoever's retailing it takes $7, so that's $6 for the distribution company to split with the filmmaker, and you don't have that no more. You can rent it for $3.99 on Amazon a lot of times.
Yeah, that goes right up there with physical movie stores for me. Like streaming is pretty much spoiled people, but I often, my biggest gripe was it's almost like you're getting dictated what you can watch and what you have access to, even for renting. There's sometimes I'll want to watch an obscure horror title that I remember growing up watching, and I can't find it anywhere. And it's like, well, if there was a old school video store, I could go in there and guaranteed find that film and rent it. But now you have to kind of comb through the internet and hope that you can buy a copy of it if it's still being distributed. So some of these movies are probably going to get lost and forgotten, unfortunately.
Anthony says, what are your thoughts on the Saw franchise? Loved the first few, but the last movie sucked.
I remember really being impressed when they first came out, and I do own the first 3 on DVD. And I thought it was a fresh take on horror. But it's another one of those examples, went on too long. They got greedy. They wanted the money. They saw how successful the series was getting, and they just went too long and ran out of ideas.
Yeah, I think James Wan is probably one of the most talented individuals to impact the horror genre in a long time. He was the last of what I call the truly great indie guys to break into the horror industry through the big studios. So what him and his writing partner did is they filmed the scene with the reverse bear claw trap. I think they spent like $10,000 for a test scene, got it out to LA and pitched Saw. And the production company at that time, Lionsgate, was doing a lot of horror movies, and a lot of them were good and some of them were not so good. And they gave them a chance, and they filmed the movie. And a lot of people might not remember this, but all the props from the original Saw were sold on eBay because they were afraid they weren't going to recoup their money. And I bought some of them and resold them. Huh?
You bought some?
Yeah, I bought the tie that Carrie Ewan wears and a couple of little small things. But even now, you'll see still Saw props circling. But James Wan was smart. He didn't sink his whole career in Saw. He got out and started directing other things. And you'll notice a lot of the movies are written by Marcus Dunstan, who I think is a very talented writer. He did The Collection, The Collected,
Yeah.
and The Collector. The Collected's coming out hopefully this year. And I just wish they would have let him direct it more of the Saw movies. But I like the franchise overall. I think it'll be interesting to see what Spiral holds with Samuel L. Jackson and a Saw spinoff movie. That's going to be definitely something I'm going to check out. Richmond said the script would have to stand on its own merits. For example, Saw. I agree. Aaron says, nice shirt, Gina.
Thank you.
Liz said, I would kill for some good original content. I agree. I think a lot of people feel that way. And John says, if Robert Englund isn't Freddy, I'm not watching it. A friend let me watch the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. That Freddy sucked. Woo! Harsh words, but true. You know.
I kind of have to agree. I mean, I wish that they would have had Robert Englund do an upgraded Nightmare and be able to delve into the darker side of Freddy that they were able to do in the 80s and like get really into his origin and his past. I just didn't buy the new Freddy. Even the makeup, how they did his face, so I didn't like it.
Fix what ain't broken.
Exactly.
Vicky says, howdy from Missouri. Howdy, Vicky. I got that movie you recommended. She recommended to me Hunter's Blood from the 80s. I finally located that today and got that on my watch list, Vicky. Thank you so much for recommending it. I can't wait to check it out. Barry says, I really thought Jigsaw was the good one. Jigsaw the movie was a good one, or Jigsaw the character was a good character? I think he was the hero in the movie sometimes. And Amanda says, the last Nightmare on Elm Street was trash, so bad that I literally could not finish it. I'm open and willing to watch remakes, but that was a miss for me. Totally awful. I did enjoy the new It remakes, however. And John says It remake was good. Mark says John Carpenter is my favorite horror filmmaker. John's definitely very talented. Hope says with the new Halloween coming out in October, from what I have been hearing, how do you feel about the new storyline? I have some theories on that new storyline, Hope. I'll throw them out here real quick. If you look at the end of the Halloween 2018 remake, the granddaughter is holding the knife still in her hand as they're riding off. So I think they're going to pull that whole, I forget the character's name, but Danielle Harris, Michael Myers connection thing with the new Halloween. And I also think the granddaughter is going to don the Michael Myers mask. I'm going to say it here first. And if I'm right, y'all going to have to go back and watch this and be like Sergeant Horror said it. The granddaughter is going to put on that Halloween mask and she's going to kill somebody in the movie.
I got that same feeling when I finished it. I got that same exact feeling, which I'm like, I hope, because we could use some strong female horror leads. And I would think that'd be a great pass on down the lineage.
Yeah.
Because if it's a psychological problem, it would be genetic. It could carry down and get triggered by trauma, like a PTSD trigger that just kind of opens up a whole box of.
That's very true. And my thinking is everybody's like, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis isn't Michael Myers' sister. But if she's not his sister, the whole storyline doesn't work.
Yeah, why would he pick that particular person when he could just kill at will?
Yeah.
Why is he focused?
I think if that wasn't his sister, then Michael Myers would basically be like the spooky version of Grand Theft Auto. He'd just go around slashing everybody. He wouldn't care if he was in Haddonfield or where.
There's always some kind of drive. That was the same formula. I feel like when these franchises were coming out, there was a drive. It wasn't just meaningless killing. There was a reason behind the killing. Jason had a reason. Freddy had a reason. Michael had a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm never really thrilled when they take writers and then that have never really been successful in a horror movie and they throw them with the iconic horror movie. Like I want Danny McBride to do great, but it's like I would have rather seen another Princess Bride than what they did with Halloween.
Yeah, and I've been known to say the same thing as far as like getting someone who's passionate, like a passion project. Someone who grew up with it, will do it justice, actually really cares about the history and just the legacy of the movie itself. I think that's why I was refreshed when I started seeing Jordan Peele put out the movies that he was putting out, because he does his research and he genuinely loves horror. And he's trying to do something different. Are they all hits? I don't know. Like it's take it or leave it.
I think. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I enjoyed Get Out. Us definitely went a different direction than I thought it would go, but I did appreciate the cameos and I did appreciate the nods that he threw in there. I will see what he does with Candyman.
I love how he took I Got Five on it and made it into a horror song because I like that.
Take something, slow it down, make it yours. I mean that's where I think that he excels. Attention to detail. His attention to detail and his tributes, I think, is what made me like him as a horror director.
Well, the problem with the Candyman is he's not directing the new Candyman. He's just producing it.
Yeah.
And he's got
a word in there, you know.
Yeah, he's got a first-time director. So it's like I'm wondering how his management style overseeing, because when you have a lot of people think, oh, the director controls the movie. No, the executive producer puts up the money. The producer, because there's really only one producer on a movie that's in charge, is what I've always worked with, is one head producer. And he keeps she keeps the director on track to ensure that the film everything's captured, that you got enough that you can go into the editing booth and come out with a great product. And it will be interesting to see Jordan's influence over, his new director that he's bringing in the game, because I'm all about, when somebody like Jordan Peele pops off and does a couple of hits, or any new director, I love them bringing other people into the industry, bringing other promising, because that's how we get a lot of good movies. But at the same token, when you bring people on, they got to meet that quality. And, I got some significant doubts about Candyman. I wasn't impressed with that little puppet trailer thing that they did,
But you never know. When I remember seeing the trailers for Get Out, I thought the movie was going to be something totally different than it was. I thought it was just going to be one of those like typical racially driven movies, but he kind of flipped it on us, and I didn't see that in the trailer. So it's one of those, like, I hope it's one of those moments where it's nothing what it seems. Because trailers give away way too much these days. They show all the good content. Some of them even show the ending, and then you don't realize you saw the ending until you watch the movie, and you're like, wow, that was in the trailer.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel the trailer is better than the whole movie itself, actually.
Yeah, just like, save me some time. I'll just watch the trailer and I get the gist of what the movie's about. But you're right about the producers, because there's many films that I've watched and people are like, that was terrible, that director sucked. And it's like, well, you don't know what influence a producer might have swayed this director and wouldn't allow him to have his creative liberties where he or change the direction. It's kind of like musicians who might want to take a different path, but they can't because they're being controlled and told to go a different way. So it's hard to tell who's at fault when the movie is a flop.
Richmond says, have either of you watched the new Fantasy Island? They tried to make it a horror film, and it just ended up being a horrible film. I watched the new Fantasy Island. Did you see it?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
I took a gamble on it. I remember watching, the Fantasy Island TV show. I always felt like Fantasy Island TV show was a horror without calling itself horror. And the movie tried to do a prequel, which just didn't work. It just didn't work for me. Um, and again, I don't know where they're going wrong in the line, if it's a disconnect from the horror community, a disconnect from the general public, or if it's just there's this cycle of producers and filmmakers in the studio system that can't deliver what we need. But I mean,
it's easy to say, let's put out this movie, but there are so many obstacles to overcome if you're a young writer trying to sell a script, and then companies are like, we want to make sure we make our money, so this is too much of a risk or too much of a gamble. I don't think they're willing to take risks these days.
No, and I think they'd be better off, like when they take a movie to theater, they have what P&A that they spend, which is typically around $20 million a picture, just advertising it out. And when you see a movie that was made on $100,000 budget and it does 100,000 and 100, when it was made on $100 million budget and it does 100 million in the box office, it lost $50 million because the production company gets half, typically, each deal's separate, but typically gets half of what the theater takes in. And then they spend the extra $20 million in advertising to bring it out to the theaters, especially if it's going to do 12 or 1,500 screenings. And that's a lot of money floating around. And instead of putting $20 million in advertising, why don't put 18 and take $2 million back and do 4 or 5 indie horror movies and bring up some new horror directors with some original content?
I agree. I think, I don't mind if a movie goes direct to video. Movie theaters right now are facing a crisis as it is, if they're going to survive, because now they're doing home previews, cutting out the middleman, per se, like shortening their, because the waits for movies in theaters to home access is very short now. I remember it used to be like 6 months. You had to wait to watch that movie again before it was released on. First, I had to go to pay-per-view, then it was released on whatever media was current. So you'd have to wait. Now it feels like 2 months after the movie's in the theater, you're able to watch it at home.
Yep.
So like, why not cut out some of these hurdles that cost money and put it back in the movie?
Yeah, and AMC theaters, they are having some trouble. You got to think they have probably, I'm just estimating, probably about 1,100 theaters at least. And those theaters are dependent on their business structure. They've been sitting empty during the COVID-19. So they've been losing revenue like crazy. And now AMC has this battle with Universal.
Yeah. They're not going to play Universal movies because of the home theater previews. And people are waiting to see how they're going to handle Disney as well, because AMC is on Disney property 2 miles from me. They just remodeled their dining side, and we're waiting to see what they're going to do with that, because Disney's doing the same thing. They're doing direct-to-home previews.
And plus, with Disney having Disney Plus, why wouldn't they?
I mean, Disney owns their content, so it's like if AMC pulls out, I don't think that'll affect Disney at all. AMC's been taking a hit anyways, because there was that, I don't know if you had the monthly AMC pass where you can go see whatever movie however many times in a month. As long as you paid the subscription, you got a card. And that flopped because they were probably losing money. Because you could go every day. You could see 30 new movies for the price of 1 month subscription. And it was too good to be true. I was like, I don't see this lasting very long. Great for the person who loves to go to the theater. Couldn't be great for the theater as far as money or revenue.
Rich Ma says, have to be at work at 5 a.m. Must sleep. Have a good night. You have a good night too. Thanks for tuning in. CJ says, wow, thanks for the heads up on incoming films. Keith says hello from Ohio. Hello, Keith. And Sheena says, hi from Nebraska. Hi, Sheena. Any closing words for us, Gina?
I think we touched on a lot of things. Even as we're talking, I was like, I think we'll have to do this again because there's some movies that are coming up to my mind that I need to remember the titles because I've watched so much. They almost make one super horror movie in my mind sometimes. I start melding them together and like into one super movie. But it gives me faith seeing everybody comment how many horror fans are out there trying to keep the genre alive and hoping that we see some fresh content. Because I hope so too. Remakes are great and all, but I think they're doing it too much now. I'd like to see some new ideas, some new faces too. I hate seeing the same actor do every movie. There are plenty of people that could do these roles and do them a great service.
Yep, I agree. We're definitely going to have to do this again, and I appreciate everybody that watched it. Be sure to share it up if you hadn't shared it up, and subscribe to the Mad Monster page, YouTube channel, because we got a heck of a YouTube channel. And I hope everybody has a good week coming up. Watch more horror movies. I'm going to be on Wednesday night with Leatherface himself. I'll see everybody Wednesday, and y'all take care. Sergeant Horror out from Mad Monster.